This is the Real Faith Podcast, where we talk about a movie clip, a scripture, and make an application. We hope these provide encouragement to you. I'm your host, Chuck Bauer. After a successful church ministry of 28 years, I became a public school teacher, currently teaching high school English. We hope you are blessed by these episodes.
Did you guys ever go to Sunday school?
Puny God.
I love you. I
know. Welcome back to Real Faith. Thank you for listening in this week. And remember, we will be bringing you an episode every other week. Well, let's jump right into it. I've been interested in the story of Saul and David for as long as I can remember. I've said for years that someone needs to make a movie trilogy of the story in the same vein as the Godfather movies. I think it would be amazing. No, there's no horse head in the bed, but David does clean house toward the end of his reign, along the same lines. Honestly, if you've never read it, check out 2 Samuel and the opening chapters of 1 Kings. It's brutal. But before all that, Saul was king, and there was a pivotal episode in his reign where his disobedience to God's command leads to his rejection as king. It takes place in 1 Samuel 15. Let me give you a little summary of it. The prophet Samuel delivers a message from God to Saul, reminding him that God anointed him as king, and that God had commanded Saul to attack the Amalekites, a nomadic tribe that had ambushed Israel during the Exodus. Now, God's instruction is explicit here. Completely wipe out the Amalekites and all their possessions, destroy everything. Saul musters an army of 200,000 foot soldiers from Israel, 10,000 from Judah. This was a significant military campaign. He marches to the Amalekite territory and sets an ambush in a valley. Before attacking, Saul warns a friendly group they need to go ahead and get out of there because they don't want to be mixed in with the Amalekites and accidentally get destroyed. And they do. Saul fights the Amalekites. He destroys them. However, he disobeys God's command. He spares the king. And then he keeps the best of everything. He keeps the best of the livestock, sheep, cattle. He keeps the valuable possessions, destroying only what was weak or not of use. So Saul's selective obedience violates the command, setting the stage for his confrontation with Samuel. God speaks to Samuel, expressing regret that he made Saul king because now Saul has not followed his commands. Samuel goes out to meet Saul, who's at Gilgal, setting up a monument to himself at Carmel. But he wants to make sacrifices to God in that. Saul greets Samuel cheerfully, saying, "Hey, I've carried out the Lord's commands." That's verse 13. But Samuel hears the bleating of sheep and the lowing of cattle, exposing Saul's disobedience. Because again, he brings back the choice animals and the riches of the Amalekites, right? So in verse 14, Samuel says, "Well, what is this bleating of sheep that I hear in my ears?" Saul deflects blame, claiming the people spared the best livestock to sacrifice to God, and he only spared the king just because, right? This excuse shifts responsibility and frames his disobedience as a religious act. And then we get this famous passage, or at least I think it is, of Samuel. He interrupts Saul and he says this powerful rebuke in verses 22 and 23 of 1 Samuel 15. "Does the Lord delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as much as in obeying the Lord? To obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed is better than the fat of rams. For rebellion is like the sin of divination, and arrogance like the evil of idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has rejected you as king." So again, this passage underscores the chapter's central theme, that God values heartfelt obedience to his commands over religious acts, right? When I read this account, I think Saul really is just like all of us. That's what we do, isn't it? I'm wrapping up the school year shortly, and one of the classics that I love to teach and I have the privilege of teaching is the Odyssey. Now, Christopher Nolan's coming out this summer with a movie adaptation starring Matt Damon as Odysseus, and I can only hope that he gets it right. And if anybody can do it, I'm sure Christopher Nolan can do it. But I don't have an Odyssey clip for this, of course, but maybe after the summer. But in the Odyssey, Odysseus's men, when they're starving, they're warned not to touch Helios's cattle. They're stranded on the island where they graze. I won't get into too much detail here, but basically, they make that decision. They're going to disobey. They're going to eat the cows, but before they do, they're going to make some sacrifices to Helios. And then if and when they get back to Ithaca, they'll make even more sacrifices, build a temple all to Helios, right? So that's what they do. They kill the cows, they make the sacrifices, they eat the cows. And of course, Helios doesn't accept their offerings, demands that Zeus destroy their ship or else he will take the sun down to Hades. So Zeus, with one lightning bolt, boom, everybody goes, right? Everybody dies except, of course, Odysseus. By the way, sorry if that spoils the movie for you. So again, the pull is to do something we know we shouldn't and then make some kind of sacrifice for it. And in our minds, we say, well, this will be okay. So Saul takes the treasure from the Amalekites. He defeated them. I'm going to go ahead and take this treasure conveniently, right? And then I'll just make some burnt offerings to the Lord and everything's going to be good. And again, same Odysseus' men cooked the cows, made the sacrifices, a provisionary I'm sorry, if you will. You know, both these accounts, obviously the Odyssey is fictional, but I think it's leaning toward what Dietrich Bonhoeffer described as cheap grace. When we just claim grace as an excuse for disobedience, then he calls that cheap grace, right? Really, I think this is a good tag team episode with the one about being holy. I mean, yes, we can't be perfectly holy, but we are to strive to live a holy life. We can try to make right decisions. We can try to live a life pleasing to the Lord. Don't take the easy route. Don't be defeated right off the bat and make excuses and justify sin and just say, well, I'll just ask for forgiveness for this later. Someone who took obedience very seriously is Desmond Doss. Yes, we're going to revisit the film Hacksaw Ridge. Before we get to him praying just one more, when he's actually in the thick of battle, he's got to go through training. And he has to stand his ground about not carrying a gun. He volunteers for the army, but states he's not going to kill. Now, how hard was it for him to stick to his convictions? How hard was it for Doss to obey what he felt led to do? I imagine it had to have been very tough. He could have given in. He could have made some excuses. He could have offered a sacrifice in a sense, but he didn't. He wanted to obey. And we get our clip of the week.
What exactly is the problem?
No problem, just a mistake. It's I told the army when I joined
It's not
up.
possible. Do you know why it's not possible, Private?
No, sir.
Because the United States Army does not make mistakes. So if there's a problem, you must be that problem.
I was just never supposed to be sent to a rifle company.
He's a CO, sir.
You're a conscientious objector, and you joined the Army.
Well, no, sir. I'm a conscientious cooperator.
You're screwing with me, Doss.
No, sir. I volunteered. I ain't got no problem with wearing my uniform and saluting the flag and doing my duty. It's just carrying a gun and taking a human life.
You don't kill. That's all.
Yes, sir, that's all.
You know, quite a bit of killing does occur in a war. I mean, that is the essential nature of war.
Yes, sir.
Desmond Doss stands firm in his conviction, refusing to carry a gun despite immense pressure because he believed it was what God called him to do. His unwavering obedience to his faith, even at the cost of ridicule, punishment, the risk of his life, really it echoes the biblical principle from 1 Samuel 15:22. To obey is better than sacrifice. Doss's story shows us that true obedience to God, or our deepest convictions, can demand tremendous sacrifice. Yet, it can also lead to extraordinary impact. like saving 75 lives without firing a shot. So what does this mean for us? Well, is there a conviction in your life, a value, a principle, or a calling that you feel compelled to honor, even if it's unpopular or costly? Maybe it's standing up for what's right at work, or staying true to your integrity in a tough situation, or following a path you believe God has set for you despite opposition. I encourage you to pray for courage. Take that step. Trust that your commitment to what's true can make a difference, just as Doss's did. Thanks for joining us today. Hey, if this story inspired you, share it with someone who needs some encouragement to stand firm. Until next time, keep seeking truth and living it out boldly. If you enjoyed this episode of Real Faith, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future episodes. Remember, you can find us at wherever podcasts are found and on scbower.com. That's scbower.com. There's also contact and bio information on that website. And if you have a question or if I can help you out, please let me know.